We're going to focus on some of the interesting props you can find on the draft on the DK Sportsbook. So let's start with the top 10 props. So you have a number of names with odds on if they'll get drafted in the top 10 picks, including our friend Davion Mitchell. So Kenny, what's your favorite top 10 bet?
I got a couple here. Moses Moody at plus 155 is really intriguing to me. He's a very, very good talent. He's got a very high floor as a player, and I think that he is a safer pick when it comes to what teams might want to do later in the top 10 in terms of their needs. I mean, he's a good 3-and-D wing. I think that he fits at the NBA level. And another guy I've been looking at just kind of as a dart throw is Corey Kispert at plus 220. He's a very good shooter, and I think that's obviously always a need. He comes from a good program in Gonzaga, and I think that at the end of the day, you look at a guy like Klay Thompson who went 11th. I think that a lot of GMs would redo that draft and take him earlier. Not saying Corey Kispert has the potential to be one of the top 5 shooters in the NBA or will be anyway right off the bat, but he is very good from beyond the arc like Moses Moody, and I think that there's a big need for him on NBA rosters. So I can see those two guys going in the top 10 at plus money.
All right, Jules, what's your favorite top 10 bet?
Yeah, the top 10, I mean, in my opinion, overall, there's not that much value here anymore just because we kind of know the top 6-ish, maybe 7. And then there's 3 guys in the field who are not projected in that top 7 who are minus 200 or more. So you got to lay a lot of juice on the guys that we think will go in there. James Bouknight, guard from UConn, his draft prop opened at 10.5, and he's now minus 475 to go in the top 10. You can't bet that. So for me, like you got to bet a guy at plus money that you think can sneak into that 7 to 10 range. I think Moses Moody is one of those guys. If you're going to take some plus money, like Kenny said, and the other guy for me would be Alperen Sengun, the Turkish dude, Turkish big man. I'm not going to lie. It's not like I watch him play all the time, but I know that he won a Turkish League MVP at 18. I know that he's versatile, and I know that he had a lot of strong lottery workouts. So he's a guy that I see going in the 8 to 12 range. So maybe you hit the plus 160 on him going in that 8 to 10 range.
All right, Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, Moody and Sengun are the 2 guys that I had on my list as well. I think Moody at plus 155 is probably the best bet on the board. I think Orlando picking at number 8 is a potential landing spot for him. Maybe Memphis even at number 10. If Josh Giddey, who's at minus 200 to go in the top 10, is off the board. Davion Mitchell, I believe, is at plus 110. I wouldn't feel great about that. But every year, there's some surprise in that 6 to 10 range. And it wouldn't shock me, if he's in consideration for Orlando at 8 or Sacramento at number 9. But yeah, like these guys said, there's not a ton of value. I mean, Bouknight is virtually a lock, it feels like, to go to OKC at 6 or maybe the Warriors at 7. The numbers certainly back that up. There's not a lot of value in betting Franz Wagner and Josh Giddey, who are both at minus 200. I wouldn't say those guys are both locks to go in the top 10, but the way things are trending, I think Giddey to Memphis at 10 and Wagner either at 8 to Orlando, 9 to Sacramento, maybe even 7 to Golden State. Those seem like pretty distinct possibilities at this point.
Well, another prop focuses on what position players will be drafted. So, for example, LSU's Cameron Thomas has a projected draft position of 22.5. You can choose the over or the under. So what's your favorite draft position prop bet on the board, Jules?
Yeah, I wrote a bunch of these up in my NBA Best Bets article that you can find on the DraftKings playbook. Unfortunately, it seems like we have already moved the Sharif Cooper line. Wrote him up at 20.5. Over minus 140. That would be my favorite. He moved to over 22.5 at minus 135 because my articles just move lines like that, apparently. But that's cool. We still like him at over 22.5 if you're late to the party. I had Jeff Goodman on the Unreasonable Odds podcast yesterday. You can find that on Twitter. You can find it in the article. He's in complete agreement with me there that Cooper is, he's a good playmaker. He's a good little shifty point guard, but he has trouble shooting the ball. He's extremely undersized, and he's awful on the defensive end. That's a late first round, early second round pick, a backup point guard in the NBA. Nobody's going to be taking him top 20, 21, 22, so I still think that's safe. And then Sengun, the guy that we just talked about, is potentially top 10. Rather than bet him top 10, I just love taking the under 12.5 on him because I really feel like 12 to the Spurs is his floor in this draft. I think 11 to the Hornets is a serious possibility. So just going to the under 12.5 rather than reaching on the top 10 is the way to go. So those are my 2 favorite draft position props in this draft.
right, Nick, what's your favorite draft position prop bet on the board?
Yeah, I like both Şengün and Cooper. I mean, some people have said Cooper is a worse defender than Trae Young even coming into the NBA. So I think that does bode well as far as him slipping maybe to the end of round 1 or into round 2. I mean, you mentioned Cam Thomas in the intro. I think Cam Thomas under 22.5 at -125 is interesting. I think what he brings as a scorer, especially for those teams picking like 15 and beyond, where you're looking for maybe an instant impact type of guy off the bench. I think that makes a lot of sense. Jalen Johnson over 14.5. That's at -145. So not a ton of value there, but as much as some people like Jalen Johnson, I think he's very projectable in terms of what he brings physically. There's a ton of question marks, and guys like that do tend to slide. I think he hears his name probably in the late teens at the earliest. I'll throw out Jeremiah Robinson-Earl from Villanova. His number is 39.5. I think he goes under that. That's at -110. And then one guy at plus money, Zaire Williams at Stanford, under 18.5. That's at +110. This one could clearly go either way, as that number implies. But for a guy who was pretty up and down and honestly mostly down during his freshman year at Stanford, there's a lot of people that are still optimistic about Zaire Williams. Big time recruit coming out of high school, a guy who it wouldn't have been out of place for him to be projected 5th or 6th overall coming into the college season. He hurt his stock a little bit, but I think there's still a lot of people who believe in Zaire Williams.
Kenny, what's your take on this?
So I actually really like a couple here. Moses Moody under 11.5 for the reasons we talked about in the top 10 bet. I mean, I think that you get better money or better value with the +155, but you do get the extra cushion of the 11th pick when you take his under. I like Jonathan Kuminga over 6.5. It's -130 right now, and just for a couple reasons. I mean, everyone you talk to who hears things anyway would tell you that nobody in the top 6 is really in love with Jonathan Kuminga. He's got a lot of risks associated with him. It's going to be a long-term project. And there's also the possibility that the Thunder trade this pick. They've been talking about trading up. And if the Thunder do trade up, I don't know if he is really locked to go in the top 6. I think that's sort of the consensus, is that he will go number 6. You do have to factor in the trades could happen, and we'll get to it with the exacta, the top 3 order. So if a trade does happen, I think that makes it very unlikely that he goes 6, and he might not even go 6 anyway because of the risks attached to him. I like the over on that. I think it's just it's much too low.